Because I was born into a race of people who had no choice. People whose ankles were bound before their feet could walk, who were handcuffed before their hands cupped their mother's breast to nurse. Slavery is woven into my history, tighter than the coils of my hair and tattooed deeper than the color of my skin. Now, I'm not talking about being black, because I'm going as far back as Eden. Because of Adam, every atom of my body has been infused with sin. Because he decided to sell out his perfect nature, even my cells out of God's perfect will. Sin in me is so ingrained that by simply being a human, I'm in chains. By having a mouth, I'm spewing lies, and lust is just a consequence of having eyes. Free will is a precursor to my rebellion's rise, and now I'm sinful self-righteousness in human disguise. I'm pro-choice, because I was made in the image of a God of choice. While the first disobedience was Adam, the first obedience was light. When God said, "Let there be light," light, by its very existence, put up no resistance to God's insistence that it be. No other aspect of creation has a choice in worshiping God. Dogs with their bark sing of his glory. Trees with their bark paint a picture of his majesty. But we, mere men, can look into the eyes of the all-seeing God, say to the voice that spoke the universe into being, be the only creation that can defy the Creator and say, no. I'm pro-choice, because I was made in the image of a God who had choice. A God that could have killed us, but chose to be killed by us so we could live through him. A God whose hands chose to form Roman soldiers in their mother's womb, knowing they would one day grow up and pierce those very hands with nails. A God who chose to breathe life over Pontius Pilate, knowing he would one day speak a death sentence over him. A God who chose to plant the very tree he would be crucified on. A God who looks into the depths of my desperately wicked heart, sees the ugliness of my sin, and chooses to forgive me every single time. I'm pro-choice because I've been reborn into a race of people who have choice. God has placed before us life and death, and I choose life because Christ tasted death for me. He didn't swallow because the grave was too shallow to hold him for more than 3 days. So now I can taste and see that the Lord is good and his mercy endures forever. I can choose to walk away from sin because his feet were nailed for me. I can choose to turn my back on sin because his back carried my cross. I can choose to be redeemed, choose to be restored, and choose to be renewed. I'm pro-choice, and I choose Christ.
Welcome back to Sunrise Now. The National Library of Jamaica, in partnership with the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport and UNESCO, will celebrate World Poetry Day on March 21. The theme of the event is Poetry in Bloom. The communications advisor at UNESCO Cluster Office, Dr. Paul Hector, and the Director of Special Programs at the National Library of Jamaica, Royane Green, join us this morning to tell us more. Gentlemen, good morning. How are you?
Good. Hi, good morning.
Well, first of all, two gentlemen talking to us about this. You know, some of the times they always say, oh, literature and the word in that regard, you know, is something that men have vacated. But big ups to you guys for pushing the against that narrative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this morning we're going to see another poet, a male, one of many who are doing excellent work in the field of literature.
What a beautiful skill. No, genuinely, what a beautiful skill. Talk to us about Poetry Day. Why is there a World Poetry Day?
Absolutely. So World Poetry Day is a UNESCO invention and intervention, really, and we use it in Jamaica to celebrate all things Jamaican literature. Poetry, we believe, is the kernel of that creativity and that resourcefulness to express oneself, and so we use it really to put our works or people forward in that sense of franchise that they have with the word.
He mentioned that it's a global effort. Doc, talk to us about our involvement in participating in this global effort.
Well, as you know, poetry, it's really something that touches the soul.
Yes.
So it's something which connects people everywhere, every nation, every country. And in Jamaica, out of many, one people, you have lots of diversity. And I think poetry is something which, across all the different cultures, it really pulls people together. So it's really central to peace, mutual understanding, respect, all of those values which help to make, you know, our world a better place.
Yeah.
This whole poetry in bloom theme, you know, tell us about the ethos of it.
Absolutely. So the National Library of Jamaica is celebrating 10 years of our Poet Laureate of Jamaica program. But really, we are looking into the environment and saying, what is happening in poetry? And a lot is happening. So we're celebrating, yes, our growth, but also the outgrowth of the practice of poetry in Jamaica. So there is the Jamaica Poetry Society that celebrates 35 years. Calabash International Literary Festival celebrates 23 years.
Yeah.
There are upcoming poetry groups such as Pen Soul and This Poem Words and Agro Festival. So it is really the stimulation of the poetry scene that we're celebrating. So in as much as we have done quite a bit of work, we're celebrating the community. Yes.
You mentioned the Poet Laureate. Go in that direction.
Sure. So the Poet Laureate of Jamaica program is the flagship program of the National Library, wherein we invest an eminent poet. So the Minister of Culture recommends to the Governor General that this person can represent Jamaica on the world stage using poetry. And the person is invested by His Excellency. And of course, they present a program for 3 years where they go into Jamaica's schools, we go abroad, we publish books, simply to stimulate the appreciation for, the reading of poetry and the writing of poetry among our young people, and to commemorate all that has been done in the field before.
But you know, it's funny because when people often think of poetry, they think about it as what we perhaps saw just before the news. But there's also dub poetry.
Absolutely.
We've put our own spin on it. I would even hasten to say some of the lyrics we hear is poetry in the music, you understand?
Yes.
But Dr. Hector, talk to us a bit about the roles that, you know, UNESCO has in helping to shape the view of literature, not just globally, but also here, and also what we're doing here to preserve what we have.
So let's start with preservation.
Yeah.
Last year, the Jamaica National Library, they established the Poetry Archive, where some of Jamaica's most celebrated poets, their creative work has been memorialized. And this is really very important because, as many have said, a country without a knowledge of its past will really have a difficult time finding its way to the future. Royanne mentioned about youth.
Yes.
One of the areas that UNESCO is really active in is, again, supporting the engagement of young people in poetry. So last year, we had 10 poets from the Caribbean, including a Jamaican. They traveled to Paris for the 40th anniversary of La Marche de Poésie. And there they had an opportunity not only to present their work, but also to engage with publicists, with publishing houses, to really spread the word of their craft across the world.
You know, one thing I love about, you know, poetry, is like, especially like in schools, you have in various clubs, children want to get involved. You know, we have through JCDC various performances and that kind of thing. For World Poetry Day, you are having an event at Devon House. Can people get involved? People who maybe, cause some of the times poetry is that little thing that people keep in them bosom
it's like
and
a
don't,
journal
you know.
moment.
And, but some of the times people are ready to share. Suppose somebody wants to come share. Suppose a lit teacher wants to bring his or her.
What Dennis is saying is he wants to read the poetry on World Poetry Day. Can he participate on March 21? Is what he's asking.
Well, when you attend our Poetry in Bloom event, you'll be within a community of poets. So you will see excellent writers and readers and performers of their work. So Dennis might not get to read to you on that day, Yendi.
I like putting a soft landing.
Yes, but the community vibe is what we're going for. We're celebrating all that they have been doing. And I can tell you, this year for our Poet Laureate of Jamaica program's competition, the Poetry Prize competition, we had 160 very, very good applicants. And it's not just one page of poetry, they had to submit a portfolio. So we went through the process and we selected people who we believe are world changers in the field. So you'll be seeing those poets on display. And of course, we'll be hearing from our Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, the Honorable Olivia Babsy-Grange, and entertainment. So there's a lot to look forward to. We call it the evening soiree for poetry.
I'm seeing there on screen lots of different prizes as well.
Yes.
for the entrance?
So this year, we have 4 categories per county and a special award for a Young Writers Prize. So we'll be awarding the 4 prizes and possibly some runner-up prizes.
Nice.
Yes.
Brilliant stuff.
$1,000 US each. So
Very cool.
That's a sizable prize.
Come on, practice. The cat sat on the mat. He ate a rat. The rat said, "Blah." Thank you so much, gentlemen. Really, really great stuff.
Absolutely.
Really lovely.
And you've brought another poet with you.
Yes,
All
his
right.
name.
All right. Well,
So that was Dr. Paul Hector, Communications Advisor at UNESCO Cluster Office, and Mr. Royane Green, Director of Special Programs at the National Library of Jamaica. Our poet this morning is Jomo Dixon, who will take us to the break with a very special piece. Over to you, Jomo.
Before burying her firstborn, she claws at the ground, piling her pain into a mound of grief, readying the soil with her tears, weeding out the disappointment of a failed upbringing, of maternal warnings trampled by the ears of his stubborn, dangling feet. With her eyes, she picks every detail of his decaying body, her hope hanging alongside him on this revenge tree. She entombs the sight in memory, daring these wicked country people to disturb his rest. And like root workers in her lineage, she uproots her other children, replanting them away from the bad influence and bad mind in Whitehall, afraid they'll be chased by phantom voices, tempted by lingering spirits, and chopped down, then hung up like their brother who grew a bit too bent. Overnight, she buries him. She mourns. She moves.